The phylotastic project, launched at a recent NESN hackathon, aims to develop software standards and strategies to provide computable, convenient, and credible access to the Tree of Life. You can read more about it at this website, phylotastic.org. I'm Arlen Stoltzfus, one of the organizers of the project, and what I'd like to do in this screencast is to explain the role of taxonomic name resolution in the phylotastic project. So, in order to do that, I'm going to focus on a particular study. I use that to explain the concept. This is Allometry of Milk Intake at Peak Lactation by Reich, published in 2011. And what's important to notice about this is just that there's a big data table here with 40 species, and there's a phylogeny down here with 40 species, and there's some results that depend on combining the phylogeny and using that to analyze the data. And this is of interest to us because we know that the author of this study got the tree of 40 mammal species from this much larger mammal supertree by Beninda Emmons, and he got that by pruning it out in a data environment called R. And that's the kind of thing that we'd like to do with phylotastic, except we'd like to make it very simple and very fast. We'd like to make it something that any user can do, not just users who have special skills. So how could we do that? What I'm going to show you, or one way of doing that would be to go to this website, Global Names Recognition and Discovery, and what I'm going to do is just upload the PDF of that study that I just mentioned. When I press Find Names here, it's going to upload that file and look through it for scientific names, for the names of species. And it takes a few seconds to process here. And the end result we get is a list of 58 names. You can see that some of these are species names, and some of them are names for higher taxa. And what I'm going to do is just take that list of names, I'm going to paste it into a file here that's just called list, and then I'm going to run a little script that's called gettree.perl and name a source tree, which is the mammal supertree, and then I'll provide the name of this file that we just created, and I'll press go. And when I do that, what's going to happen is that's going to go to this topology server, which you can find out about the Phylotastic website, and this screencast will tell you exactly how to write that script. Okay, and as you see, our script is done. We've got our tree here, and that's a perfectly good tree of species from the study that we uploaded. But it's not exactly the tree we want. If we take the PDF of that study, we auto-extract names, and we run Phylotastic, we get a tree with 38 species, not the same as the 40 species here. There are 36 species that match. There's 2 species that are listed in the text but are not used in the analysis. If I go to the data table of this study and I copy and paste names out of the first column into a list, run Phylotastic, I get a tree with 33 species. If I go to this tree image and I read the names by eye and I manually key them into a list and run Phylotastic, I'll get a tree of 36 species, not the same as this set of 36 species. And that's in spite of the fact that I know I can get a tree that has all 40 species using that Phylotastic script if I just give it the right set of names. So this is all about names. And what's going on is that there are spelling errors, there's inconsistency with the same document, there's cases where the author of the study and the authors of the mammal supertree are using different names for the same species. In other cases, this is more problematic. Whether or not these are the same species depends on the context. So sometimes they can be treated as the same, sometimes they should not be treated as the same, sometimes they're not the same, but one can be substituted for another. So how does a user deal with something like that? Well, if you go to Google, type in one of the problematic names, Cephalophus manticola, and right away you'll see it says showing results for Monticola, because actually this is a misspelling of this. And what you'll find out from Google is that this is the name for the blue duiker. And what you'll also find out is that some sources use a different name, Philantomba monticola, instead of Cephalophus monticola, for the same thing. If you look at one of those resources here, this is an article all about this blue duiker, and nowhere in the article does it say that there's 2 different names for it. This only turned up in my Google search because there's some references down here at the bottom that use the different genus name. And here's another resource, which is actually a taxonomic name resolution service, and it validates for us that Cephalophus monticola is a valid scientific name. It puts it in a classification, but this also doesn't tell us what its synonyms are. So what we'd really like to have to make this convenient for users is a taxonomic name resolution service, so that you don't have to go to Google. And what a service could do, and we already saw an example of one of those, IDAs, is validation, semantic anchoring, that is telling you anchoring the name to a concept, to synonyms, and to a classification. Annotation and spelling correction. Spelling correction excuse me, is vital because in the study we just looked at, and I think this is generally true, mismatches between names in resources are mainly due to misspelling and not to genuine taxonomic ambiguity or taxonomic conflict. So at the hackathon, the phylotastic hackathon, the taxonomic name resolution team, these fellows shown here, decided that none of the services that exist now could provide us with all we wanted. What they did was develop a new meta service that wraps up several other services. They also implemented a couple of new core services, and they provided a web services API for this. So here are some examples here. And what this means, what the web services API means, is that you can access this taxonomic name resolution service with a browser or with a script, and all you need to do is to give it the right URL. So we can just paste that into a browser, and it will look for this species. It actually gives us a token that we have to retrieve here. And this taxonomic name resolution service actually finds 3 matches. One of them is a match to something that's actually different from iPlant. That's a plant genus. But NCBI and the new version of mammal species of the world all tell us that Philantomba, that Cephalophus monticola actually maps to Philantomba monticola. And if we look at this link, we can actually get information here on this species from mammal species of the world. This, by the way, is the red deer or elk, not the blue duiker. So, to put this in context, the script that I showed you earlier is a very simple phylotastic client. It just takes a list of species, it goes to a pruner, and that pruner has a bunch of source trees, and it prunes out the species you want from the source tree. It doesn't deal with names. In order to make the whole phylotastic system work, given the way that user resources often are, we need to integrate taxonomic name resolution services to rectify names so that the user can get the tree that the user wants, even if the names are misspelled or they're not the most up-to-date synonyms. And that, in a nutshell, is how taxonomic name resolution services fit into the phylotastic project.